Hi, my name's Lee. I'm from Aqualease and I've come today to clean the fish tank. So some kids will say, oh, you've come to clean the fish. No, I haven't come to clean the fish. The fish are fine. What I'm doing is coming to clean the tank itself and the water to make it nice and clean. So we'll talk a little bit about the fish. So I know a little birdie, a little fishy even, has told me that this fish here, the parrotfish, is your favourite fish. And I don't think he's called Simon. Is that right? Simon, the parrotfish. So Simon here, you might notice when you come out of the tank, he follows your finger sometimes, like, whoa, what's going on? And he follows your finger, and he's like, wow, that's really, really interesting. What is he doing? Well, he's very, very inquisitive fish. So Simon, he is actually, he's either trying to have a little nibble at your finger perhaps, or because he's so inquisitive and so, he's quite clever actually for a fish, is that he's trying to sort of get food. So he's trying to make you feed him. Which is particularly clever for the parrotfish, but that's sort of a little bit about what they do. I'm saying they're parrotfish, like I said, being clever, like, well, fish can't be clever, what are you talking about, Lee? Well, they can. So there's a little myth about fish only having a 3-second memory, 5-second memory, 2-second, whatever, just a few seconds. Well, I think that is not true, so that is probably one of the biggest myths you'll ever hear about fish. If that was the case, how would they know to come up to the surface every time they want feeding? Because that is maybe 24 hours later, it's a full day later, but they still remember to go up to the top. So obviously 3 seconds can't be true. But it's actually, from my own experience, it's at least 8 to 12 months memory. That's on some studies that have been done, and I've done myself. So I know that fish actually have a very good memory, sometimes better than me even. So, what other fish we got here? We've got these rainbow fish. So these rainbow fish are very, very beautiful. You can see there the red ones. We've got the yellow and blue one around there. These are very, very pretty fish. They are not born with these colours though. So you may have noticed when they're much smaller, when they're teeny little babies, they have this very boring sort of like browny grey colour. And then what happens is they get older and more mature. They start coming out in these little colours and they'll start looking really, really pretty. And then, like, well, what are they doing that for? What is the colours for? Well, actually, it's to attract the females, so the males will be all nice and pretty, like, hey, look at me, I've got all these lovely colours, and the female's like, ooh, hello, you look nice, I like your colours. And then that's when it all happens, and you got like small little rainbow fish. So that's why they get colourful later on in life. Shark, silver shark. So this little thing here, now he is not actually a shark. I know, sorry. Spoiler alert, he's called a silver shark because he looks a little bit like a shark, a lot like a shark, but he's not. So he's actually from a different family, and he has this little mouth that he likes to suck eat on the bottom. So he will generally eat food from the bottom if he can. His little lips come out and he's like, and he sucks on the bottom a little bit. But they are known for being fantastic jumpers. So they will jump out of the water and out of the tank, because I don't think they are very clever. I was talking about parrotfish being clever. I don't think silver sharks are very clever. I don't think they're quite got it there. But what happens is, so we've got to have this lid on here. We've got to have this hood on, because he will often try and jump out, and he'll be on the water, he'll be flapping around, going, oh no, what have I done? And then he will die. Obviously, fish out of water is not a good thing. So we've got to make sure that we keep them in there. So yeah, so then we've got the little loach. So some people say, oh, I love this got a little loach down here. These little loaches here have a very, very important job. They're in there to do a job, and they're to eat algae. So what I'll be doing afterwards is I'll be giving the tank a good scrub to get rid of any algae that's on that tank. And algae is grown from light, so if the light's on too long, then you get algae growing in the tank. These little loach like to suck on the side, so you see them munching away on the side of the tank there and on the ornaments, and they eat the algae that's growing on there. So they have a very, very important job indeed to do to keep this tank nice and clean. Then we've got, the little rosy barbs. These little barbs on here, the tiny little fish, they like to swim in shoals. So they like to stay together, and they will like to swim around in the tank, keeping themselves, often you will find them in the wild in really, really big shoals, swimming around. So they obviously, of course, look very, very pretty. So I'm going to carry on now, cleaning the tank. It's not good for the fish, and then the fish will die, and then everybody gets upset, and it's not very nice because you've got dead fish. Or because they've produced this ammonia. So how do we get rid of it? Well, that's what this filter does. So this gravel turns the toxic stuff from ammonia to something something that's safe. eventually you'll get through a different thing called nitrate. Nitrate is not toxic for the fish in low levels. So that's what happens to the water. Basically, ammonia you can't see, and that is toxic for the fish, and then that gets produced into something called nitrate, which isn't harmful to the fish, but also you can't see either. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this water that you can't see, but can make the fish very, very ill if it's not dealt with. And that's what this gravel here does. It changes that water from being poisonous to being clean and okay for the fish, and that's how the fish can survive. So that's why we've got to make sure that it's all kept nice and clean. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm going to take all this off. Give it a good scrub, because let's face it, this is a fish's house, isn't it? It's where the fish live. And imagine in your house, I bet your parents, whoever's looking after you every day, when you go to school, you come home to a nice clean house. That's because they've been cleaning the house for you. Well, this is what I'm doing now. I'm cleaning the fish's house. You're like, well, that sounds a bit daftly. How can you be cleaning the house? Well, I am. Only I'm not doing a bit of hoovering up, a bit of dusting. No, not wiping the floors. We're just getting everything nice and clean, getting all that algae that I was talking about earlier that the fish, some fish like to eat. They can't eat it all, so then it's up to me to make sure that we get all the rest of it off, so that we keep this tank nice and clean for you guys to see them. I'll give that a good scrub around there. There we go. Give this a nice good wipe. Keep it clean so that when you guys come in next time, you're like, wow, the fish are looking really good. You go, yeah, Lee, you did that. So we give this thing here in my hand, like, what's that? What are you doing with this, Lee? It's like, is it like a little lightsaber or something? No, this is a heater. So these fish in here are actually tropical fish. Well, tropical often means it's nice and warm. So this water has to be kept warm for the fish. Because if it's not, if it goes cold, this poor little fish will be sat there, whoa, it's freezing in here. What are you doing, Lee? Put the heater back on. Sorry guys, put that back on again. If it gets too cold, the fish will die, and we definitely don't want that. So we've got to make sure these fish are kept nice and warm. And the temperature they like to be at, well, about 25 to 26 degrees Celsius. So if you get in the bath, your bath might be about 30-ish, maybe somewhere around there. So you can imagine it's just a little bit cooler than your bath. So that keeps it all very nice and warm and toasty for them. You do not want a cold tank for them. So that's what this is. So that's why I'm just giving it a bit of a clean to make sure that it's all okay and that it doesn't break. So we don't want the heater to go down, do we? Because then they will get cold. And it's very, very cold outside today. So we don't want the fish having the same trouble, do we? And then, next, just going to give this pipe a clean. So this pipe here that you can see, this is the one I was talking about earlier on. So this is where the water comes up. So if you remember, the water gets pulled up from a pump that's just on the top here. That comes, so the water goes down through the gravel, and then it comes back up this tube here. So this tube has a lot of water going through it every single day. So it gets really, really dirty. So we've got to make sure that that stays clean as well, because if that gets blocked, well, that stops working. Well, then the filter's not going to work, and then what's going to happen to the fish? They might die. So we definitely don't want that either, do we? So we're going to put that back in there now we've done that. And then we've got to make sure that the outside stays nice. Remember, that house cleaning, keeping the fish's house nice and clean and tidy. That's what I'm doing now. Make it all nice for the fish. There are some things we do, we've got to keep it right for the fish. And there are other things that we do to keep it right for us, so that when we see them, they look nice. And you don't want a tank that looks horrible and dirty, do you? Because that's not going to make us want to look at them very much, is it? We don't like that. So we give it a good clean. on the inside and the outside. And here, a little close up of this little thing here. See how dirty that is? Can you see that? That is all the muck that's going up that pipe, and it's going into this little pump here, and that gets all clogged up with dirt. So we've got to make sure that all of this stays nice and clean, because this is the little thing that pulls all the water up. So this spins around inside the pump, pulls all the water up, makes it go through this gravel, which again is a filter. That's what keeps the water nice and clean and safe for the fish. What I'm doing now is just cleaning the other bits that keep it all in there. It's a bit boring, this bit, but it has to be done. And then once we've done that, we can put it all back together again. It's all a bit disgusting at the moment. Ooh. Give that a good scrub. There we go. We've got to keep that housekeeping in order, don't we? Now then. So there's that pump. This pump is very, very important, as I say. We've got to keep it clean. Put that back together. Put that in there. And then the next thing after we've done all this is we have to make sure that this airline is back on again. Now, I think, well, fish live in the water. They don't breathe air. What are you talking about? Lee? Don't be so silly. They don't breathe air. Well, you'd be wrong, because they do breathe air, but they do it in a very, very special way. So you know, fish have these little gills on the side of the face, and pointing that way, don't they? They're kind of flapping around like that, and like, ooh, what is that? What, these little things, sometimes you can see them, they're a little bit red inside. And what are they for? What do they do? Well, they're the things that help it breathe. So they get oxygen that's in the water, so we breathe oxygen in the air. Well, there's oxygen in this water as well. If there wasn't, the fish would suffocate. So you're like, well, how do they get that oxygen out of the water? Because if we stick our head in there, we're going to drown if we leave it in there long enough, but fish don't. So they use these gills to get water. The water passes through the gills, and then the gills sort of absorb the oxygen that's in that water, that's mixed up in the water. Absorbs it, it goes into their blood, and then through their body, and then that enables them to be able to breathe and take in that oxygen and carry on. So, how does water get oxygen in the first place? How does it do that? Well, that's what these bubbles do. So, oxygen, air, goes in the water by movement on the surface. So you see all this movement I'm doing on the surface here, that is putting oxygen into the water. So that's what these bubbles are doing on the tank. So we put these little airline in here, and the bubbles go from the bottom up to the top, and it moves the water surface. It agitates. It makes the water move. So then that's putting oxygen into the water so that the fish can carry on breathing. If they don't, if there's no surface movement at all, if that water isn't moving, it's just very, very still, the fish at the top, and they're sort of gasping for air, like, I can't breathe, Lee, I can't breathe, what are you doing to me, man? Sort out the water. Like, all right. We'll move the water around, get it moving, get some bubbles in there, get that water moving, and then the fish can breathe again. Like, oh, phew, thanks, Lee, saved our lives. We need that, we need oxygen to breathe, and they do. So it's the other way around for the fish. So if we put our head in there, we'll suffocate, we'll drown. But if you take a fish out of water, you're suffocating the fish, and they're going to drown, but they drown in the air, not in the water. So it's really important that we don't take fish out of water and that they stay in there all the time, because it's a little bit like somebody dunking your head in the water without you expecting it, and you don't like that very much, do you? I know I don't, so the fish don't either. So we've got to be really, really careful with looking after the fish and making sure that they stay in water as much as possible. And we'll just give this a good clean. We'll put it all back together again. And then, this is the best bit. We get to decorate the tank. We get to make it look nice and pretty. So we've got some lovely plants here. And a lovely rock. This really is just to make it look nice for us. It gives a fish somewhere to hide as well. So we don't, if you're a fish, and you just swimming around in a tank like that, well, it's a bit boring, isn't it? You want something in there, you want places to hide. I mean, what if they wanted to have a little game of fishy hide and seek? Well, they can't, can they? Because there's nothing to hide in. So we've got to give them something. So we're going to put some plants in there for them to make it look nice and exciting. So we'll put those in there. Put this nice rock in the bottom. Look at that, I think that's got plenty of nice holes for them. So some of the smaller fish. So we'll put that in there. Careful not to drop it on any of them. We definitely don't want that, do we? And also, we've got to put this nice looking thing in there. This is the thing that hides the tube. So remember that tube that I was talking about? That's where the water goes down through the gravel. The gravel cleans the water, makes it all nice for the fishes again, comes back up the tube and out this pump. And that's what we're just going to hide, because it looks a bit boring really, doesn't it? So we try and make it look a little bit more interesting. There. And there we have it. And then once all that's done, the fish will be happy again. And I'm sure if they could speak, they would maybe say, "Oh, thanks Lee, we're really happy now. My house is nice and clean and tidy. Cheers for that." I'm like, no worries guys, you are more than welcome. I've got to keep you happy. Happy fish, it's a happy Lee. Put that in there. Put that in there. And away we go. Got to use these long grabbers. So these are very, very useful. Some of you may have seen them before. I'm thinking, oh, they're what we use for picking up litter with. Like, you'd be absolutely right. If anybody has ever done any litter picking, which by the way is very, very good. If any of you do, then good on you, well done, because it's very, very good for the planet. We've got to keep looking after our planet, and that will help the fish as well. And pick up the litter. With less litter is in the place, the better our planet will be. So that is that. Now we're just going to top up with some nice fresh water. So I've taken out dirty water, and now the fish are going to get this beautiful, lovely, fresh, clean water. Now this water is slightly heated, so it's nice and warm for the fish already, because we don't want to go putting freezing cold water in there. Remember, as I said earlier, these fish like to live in warm water, so that means they are tropical fish. So if we go sticking freezing cold water in there, well, it's a bit like us sticking you in a bath of freezing cold water. Oh, that's cold, what are you doing? So we don't want to do that to the fish, do we? So we give them nice warm water so they don't get any kind of shock, because that would be horrible, a bit mean to the fish, wouldn't it? So we put the rest of that in there, and it'll help to keep the fish clean and healthy. There we go. While I'm doing this, there's another fish in here that I didn't tell you about. So there's one called the gourami. So that's the orange fish that he's kind of hiding at the back at the moment. The gourami is a fish that doesn't really like other fish of its own kind very much. He likes to sort of keep himself to himself, or herself to herself, and he likes to kind of stick around and sort of do its own thing really. They are funny fish. They like to they lay eggs, but they do it in what's called a bubble nest. So they'll make a nest full of bubbles, and then they'll lay their eggs inside that. And once they've done that, then they'll go away and they become solitary fish, become a fish on their own again. So that is the gourami. They also made this funny noise as well. That nobody really knows why they're doing it. Perhaps to call the female of the fish. But they make like a croaking sound, a little bit like a frog. A little bit bizarre, isn't it? Imagine that. If you go and you hear the croaking noise from the tank. Well, what's that? We ain't got any frogs. No, it might be the gourami. So just keep an eye out in case that you do hear that happening, because that might be the gourami doing it. So we're going to put this nice clean water in here, and then we are just about done. There we go. And that is pretty much it once I've finished. So there we go, we're going to clean tank again. Thank you all very much, and I hope you all stay safe, stay at home, save lives, and take care. Bye bye everyone.